What we're aiming to do now for the next 100 days over the summertime is to graze 13 or 1400 kilos of dry matter per hectare, get into those lovely lush green covers with high levels of leaf, green to the butt, and I suppose the key thing on that and getting into those 13 or 1400 is probably being back at somewhere between an 18 and a 21 day rotation.
Hello and welcome to the Beef Edge, the Teagasc Beef Podcast, for all your latest news, information and advice for Irish beef farmers. I'm Catherine Egan, and on this week's episode, I'm joined by Teagasc Grass10 advisor Joseph Dunphy to discuss grazing management on farms at the moment and the do's and don'ts when it comes to harvesting silage. Joseph, you're very welcome. After a difficult spring, what is happening on farms in grass groups across the country?
Yeah, so look, it's been a difficult few weeks on farm there in terms of with weather conditions. A lot of stock, particularly towards the earlier part of May, had to be rehoused again, and there was a little bit of damage done on farms. But look, we're coming out of that now. If we look at this week's pasture-based figures, growth rates are up to nearly 70 kilos of dry matter per hectare across the farms. There is surplus appearing on a lot of beef farms throughout the country. So it's really time to we're well into the middle of May at this stage, so it's time to get moving and start time to react to the grass growth that's happening at the minute.
You mentioned there for paddocks that had got damaged either earlier in the spring or earlier this month. How can that be rectified?
In general, Catherine, the hoof is going to do a lot of that rectifying. I'm very, very slow to advise farmers, to go in with heavy rollers and stuff like that. Apart from maybe a corner of a field that got badly damaged, maybe where animals were standing at a night. But in general, for large parts of farms, it's going to be the hoof and maybe the likes of a small bit of P&K that will help to sort out any damage that was done.
What are the key targets that farmers should be focusing on now for grazing at the moment and in the weeks ahead, do you think?
So, Catherine, to keep it very, very simple, the key targets are pre-grazing yield and rotation length. Okay, these two figures will, what we're aiming to do now for the next 100 days over the summertime is to graze 13 or 1400 kilos of dry matter per hectare, get into those lovely lush green covers with leaf, good high levels of leaf, green to the butt, and I suppose the key thing on that and getting into those 13 or 1400 is probably being back at somewhere between an 18 and a 21 day rotation, and at this time of the year, it can tend to get out of control on a lot of farms, and all of a sudden then we don't get the graze out. We end up going into 18 or 1900 or 2000 kilos of dry matter per hectare in terms of covers. The rotation length slows down, and then that effect completely snowballs, and we just get into we set the farm up with bad quality grass then for the summer. So the two key things over the next coming weeks is keep the pre-grazing yield at 13, 1400 kilos dry matter per hectare, and try and keep on top of that rotation length.
That's great, Joseph. And you mentioned there the importance of getting quality grass in the diet ahead, and that's very important really for the whole grazing season ahead. In relation to all the rain that fell, I suppose, back in March, when you look back, silage ground was closed late on many farms. What impact is that having now at the moment?
Yeah, so Catherine, there's probably a couple of different things that are happening on farms. There's probably people who silage ground just didn't get fertilized early on, and then they kind of maybe in maybe the second half of April went with their full rate and full rate of fertilizer. But there's probably also people, Catherine, who delayed, but also kind of had maybe the end of May, 1st of June in mind for cutting as well. So there's two probably trains of thought there that's happening on farm at the minute.
So talk through those that are ready to cut now in the coming week.
Yeah, so Catherine, look at again, it all boils back down to very, very simply, in terms of silage ground, is what animals do I have on my farm next winter? Okay, so and for your listeners there, Catherine, beef farmers throughout the country, there's bound to be dry suckler cows that are going to only need that 65, 68 DMD silage. But there's also, there's young growing stock, Catherine, on that farm that are going to require somewhere 72 to 76 DMD silage. Okay, so that, we really need to make some super, high quality silage for your priority animals for next winter. And then if we get that really good high quality silage, we can then focus on the rest of the summer, maybe trying to get a bit of second cut and maybe a lower DMD silage for dry cows. Okay, so with that in mind, we should be targeting to make leafy, high quality silage over the coming weeks, and we're probably looking at somewhere around a 7 or an 8 week interval. So if there's people who have their fertilizer out, and that fertilizer in terms of has been used up in terms of 2 units a day, there's no reason why, Catherine, over the next week, 10 days, that they can't take that silage.
And what factors do farmers need to consider now at this stage that's going to affect the quality of the silage? The decisions that's really made in the next week to 10 days are going to impact the quality of that silage that you mentioned.
Well, Catherine, look at some of the factors that will affect it. If that crop is ready, and you're targeting say 74 DMD, if you hang on by an extra week, that DMD could be reduced by somewhere around 3 to 5 units of DMD. So all of a sudden that silage is back under 70 DMD, which is really only good then for maybe for dry cows, or maybe potentially a 70 DMD maybe for suckler cow milking to a certain extent. Old pasture then, Catherine, as well, will be maybe 5 DMD lower than that. With a lot of the heavy rainfall that came there in the middle part of the earlier part of May, if grass has lodged over a little bit, we could lose 8 or 10 units of DMD there. And if particularly maybe ground this spring that didn't get grazed just due to wet weather at particular points, if there's a yellow butt appearing in that, Catherine, we could lose maybe 7 units of DMD there. Okay, so all of a sudden then, when silage crops are ready, if we hang on and we wait, we're losing DMD all the time. So try and get them taken when the nitrogen is used up and go again.
You mentioned there about the nitrogen being gone from the crop. Advisors are busy at the moment taking in grass samples. Can you talk through how you take a grass sample and what tests are carried out to ensure that the nitrogen is gone from the crop?
Yeah, so Catherine, look at as you said, a silage sample is good. It's a good test that's done at this time of the year. And the main 2 things we're looking for, Catherine, on this from at harvesting time is we're looking at the sugar levels, and we're looking at the nitrate levels. Okay, so if someone wants to take a silage sample, take a sample of grass, maybe cut it to the base and put it into a plastic bag. And if there's going to be a bit of a delay or whatever in getting it into the office, put it in the freezer for the night. And what the freezer will do is it'll freeze the juice that's in the grass, and then when you bring it into the office, it's easier to break apart for testing. Okay, so what we're trying to do there, Catherine, is we're trying to extract the juice from the grass in that test to test it for nitrates and sugars. The higher the sugars, essentially, Catherine, to keep it very, very simple, is the better it's better for the bacteria. There's going to be more sugar for the bacteria to work on, so we'll drop the pH in that silage quicker, which helps in siling of the silage. And in that regard, Catherine, we want to target somewhere in around 3% or above sugars at that time of cutting. Okay. And then from a nitrate point of view, Catherine, we can test the nitrates as well. And as I said already, a good guide is that, if we've put out 80 units of nitrogen altogether, we probably need somewhere in around 40 days, the 2 units a day. But it's no harm to get that nitrate checked as well. But sugars, Catherine, if we have high sugars, they will help at times to alleviate some of the issues around nitrates. But, do your rough calculation of your 2 units a day. But grass sample is very worthwhile taking at this time of the year, especially if you see a few good days on the forecast. You're kind of maybe a little bit undecided whether you should take it or not. You think your crop is ready, just to kind of give you that bit of peace of mind, get your sugar levels and your nitrate levels checked.
That's great, Joseph. And I suppose farmers looking at crops at the moment and walking them, they mightn't be as bulky as they think they are. By delaying that crop, what issues would that cause for the closing of the second cut?
Yeah, so Catherine, I think like all the old research work, like there's a lot of old work on this, and if you delay first cut to maximize yield, and some people may be thinking of that this year. There may be parts of the country, there was a little bit of drought in the last few years. They may want to make bulkier first cut this year. But in general, what we find is that these things, the cuts tend to balance themselves out, and you actually may, by delaying, you may actually grow less grass, through the year. So we kind of find that a nice sweet spot is maybe get that first cut taken around the last 2 days of May in general, and that if we aim for somewhere around a 6-ton crop, that you would probably still get somewhere between over a 5-ton crop then for second cut, okay, which would be maybe totaling over or close to 11 ton. Whereas if we delayed that crop, Catherine, to somewhere in around the 10th of June, or even further on, the 15th, 20th of June, would you believe that by the time we get and harvest that second cut, we've actually grown less grass as a whole between the two crops? So get that crop cut early, around that, first, we'll call it the June bank holiday weekend, if necessary, if it's available in terms of the nitrate is used up, and get a cut. Get it cleaned off before it goes, too yellow at the butt, and move on again and get going again for your second cut.
And in some instances, you mentioned there, Joseph, that surplus paddocks might be being taken out now along with the first cut that possibly didn't get grazed this spring. What are the things that farmers need to consider in regard to taking out these surplus paddocks now?
Yeah, so Catherine, look at, as you said, some of these paddocks maybe with the difficult weather over the last few weeks haven't got grazed. And I have been out on farms, I've seen a couple of paddocks like that. And when you look at them now, Catherine, they're gone very, very yellow at the butt. So what I would be encouraging farmers there in that regard, Catherine, is to get them cut out as soon as possible, and get that ground restarted again, because they're nearly standing still at this stage, and the quality is limiting at this stage. They're very, very yellow at the butt. So try and get them mowed out in good conditions, in good dry weather, if you can at all.
That's great, Joseph. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much.
That's all for this week's episode, and my thanks to Joseph for joining me on the show. You can catch up on all other shows and interviews from the Beef Edge podcast on the Teagasc website at teagasc.ie, or you can listen on Apple and Google Podcasts as well as Spotify. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe so you never miss a show. For all other updates from our beef programme, keep an eye on our Twitter and Facebook pages. Until next time, I'm Catherine Egan, and thanks for listening.